Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Astronomical League's video sessions. My name is John Goss, former president of the Astronomical League. This program is one of a series of presentations in conjunction with the 75th anniversary of the League. The League was founded on November 15th, 1946, with just under 1,500 members. Today, as I found out the other day, we have just under 20,000 members spread across the United States with a number of international memberships as well. Today we have with us Mark Simonson, who is the program administrator coordinator for the, get this right, the local Galaxy Group and Neighborhood Observing Program. And he'll be discussing this, telling us all about it in just a few minutes. The League is most well known for its many observing programs of all types. We have programs for beginners, such as learning your way around the constellations. We have programs for a more intermediate level, which would be I guess the Messier observing program, some planetary work. We have programs dealing with the sun. We have programs dealing with the moon, star clusters, nebula, and galaxies. And we have many more programs dealing with galaxies and galaxies. So what Mark's going to be talking about today will be galaxies. Galaxies in our local group. And before I talk a lot more, I think I should turn things over to Mark to see what he has to tell us about the local Galaxy Group and Neighborhood Program. So Mark, are you ready to take off with this?
I am. Hello, everybody. My name is Mark Simonson, as John already said. This first slide is, that's the pin for the Lgg&Gn, I like to call it, because the other one is just total mouthful. So Lgg&Gn is Local Galaxy Group Neighborhood Observing and Neighborhood Observing. The pin, if you haven't noticed, is M31 with M32 and M110 right next to it. Those are two of the satellites around it. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. At the bottom there is my my email address. And you can also, if you go to this program on the Astronomical League website, my email address is in there also. Let's see if this goes. There we go. Okay, the Lgg&Gn is a program that was created by the Rose City astronomers, Dareth Murray and Robert McCowan in 2008. The coordinators were Dareth Murray from 2008 to 2018, Aaron Clevenson for 1 year, 2019, and then I started taking over just before COVID hit in 2020 to the present. The observing program is considered to be an advanced program or an advanced observer program. And 47 individuals since 2008 have earned the certificate and the pin. The program can be done either manually or device aided. It can be done visually or through imaging, or it can be done through a remote telescope. But there's a lot of stipulations with the remote telescope. You have to be in control of the scheduling and everything for that. Okay, program, these are the quick view of requirements. And like I said, it's if you look on the left-hand side, it's manual or device aided. It is telescope or camera. Remote telescope, yes. Imaging or visual. Number of levels, there's only one level. The number of observations you have to do, there are 88. And you can read the rest of that, it's pretty easy. And then the observing requirements are on the right-hand side. There's a picture of two manuals there. The cream colored one is the older manual, which is probably a collector's item now. And then this one is the white one is the brand new one. One thing about the manual, and I'll get into it, it's a valuable manual for not just viewing galaxies. There's a lot of stuff in there. The border scale is in there, averted vision. We'll get into all of that. Okay. This is a sample page from there on one of the galaxy groups. This is, which one is that? M66. And you can see it comes with a map. There's a description on each one of the groups. And this is not one of the local groups. This is one of the neighbor groups. Also, it's got usually a legend that shows what the name of the item is or the object. If it has any other names, the type or classification as a galaxy. the right ascension, declination, the magnitude, the size, and what constellation it's in. Like I said on the manual, all of this is in the manual. You've got the Bortle scale in there with really good examples of what each number is. Seeing in transparency, how to judge what you're seeing is, what your transparency is. There's a whole section on the art of observing. There's a section on the averted vision scale, which you're definitely going to use if you're doing visual in this program. And there's a dark adaptation section in there also. All great for any kind of observing, not just galaxies. Okay, a little bit of history before we start talking about galaxies. Until about 100 years ago, the Milky Way galaxy was thought to be only a few thousand light years across, and most thought that that was all there was to the universe. Other galaxies had been discovered, but they were thought to be smaller objects within our own galaxy, within the Milky Way. The first galaxies were identified in the 17th century by French astronomer Charles Messier, although at the time he did not know that they were what they were. Messier, who was a successful comet hunter, spotted a number of other fuzzy objects in the sky, which he knew were not comets. Worried that other comet hunters might be similarly confused, he compiled a list to prevent their misidentification. Messier's list, as we all know, contains information on 110 star clusters and, back then, spiral nebulae, now known as galaxies. But it was almost 300 years before astronomers figured out what the fuzzy spiral nebulae actually were. Some people argue that these nebulae were island universes, objects like our own Milky Way galaxy, but external to it. Others disagreed and thought that these were spiral objects or clouds of gas that were within our own Milky Way. The argument went on until the 1920s, when American astronomer Edwin Hubble finally measured the distance to one of these spiral nebulae. In 1923, Hubble was studying the Andromeda Nebula, and now called the Andromeda Galaxy, when he realized that one of the objects that he was observing was in fact a Cepheid variable star. Cepheids are stars whose brightness changes periodically over time, and they were discovered by American astronomer Henrietta, I think it's Swan Leavitt, in the early 1900s. Leavitt found what is now known as the period luminosity relationship, a link between the luminosity or brightness of a Cepheid and its period. By observing and measuring the period and brightness of a Cepheid over time, the period luminosity relationship can be used to determine its actual brightness, which in turn can determine its distance. Hubble used the period luminosity relation to find the distance to the Cepheid he was studying in M31 and prove that it was located outside of our own galaxy. This finally ended the debate on the nature of spiral nebula, and they were indeed distant galaxies like our Milky Way. Hubble's estimate was, I believe, 900,000 million light years, and it was actually 2.5 million light years, but it was still outside of our own galaxy. It's a group of billions of stars and their planets, gas, everything else, including dark matter. They're light years across, thousands of light years across, and it's a unit within the universe overall. They're held together by gravitational forces, dark matter, and most of the galaxies that are out there are shaped as spirals and ellipses, and the remainder are asymmetrical. And on the right-hand side, it's blocking it a little bit here with our picture, but there's three major types: elliptical, irregular, and spiral. This is just a real quick, it's called the Hubble tuning fork, or you can use that name up there. I can't pronounce French. I speak Russian and German, but not French. It shows the different types of galaxies. And as you can see on there, The Milky Way is believed to be a SB, lowercase b type galaxy, which is a barred spiral. And you can't see it on here, our pictures are in the way, but to the right, that's where the irregulars are. Okay, the local group. Our galaxy, the Milky Way, is one member of a nearby group of about 40 known galaxies called the local group. The true number remains unknown as the census has steadily grown over the years as new members become identified. And there's a big problem with the Milky Way and all the dust in the Milky Way blocking what we can actually see, or through radio telescope also. Several more dwarf galaxies may be undetected, particularly behind the Milky Way. The local group contains members of most galaxy types, including large spirals like the Milky Way, M31 and M33, which are the Andromeda and the Triangulum. It also contains several bright irregular galaxies, the Magellanic Clouds, large and small, several dim irregulars, several dwarf galaxies, elliptical, compact types, and even a highly stripped galaxy, Sagittarius dwarf elliptical galaxy. The only important type not represented in the local group is elliptical type. M32 is an elliptical, but not a typical elliptical that we expect to see. The decision to include a galaxy within the local group is not straightforward. The best criteria is dynamical, in that the galaxy should be gravitationally bound to the other local group galaxies. To simplify matters, the radius of the local group has been established to about 5 million light years, as you can see on there. There's approximately 40 members, all within 5 million light years. In the slide there, the one closer to the center is the Milky Way. The one behind our pictures is Andromeda, and M33 is right up above that. Okay. The Milky Way and all the galaxies within the radius are said to belong to the local group. So this is 5 million light years out. Because of its proximity, the local group represents a unique opportunity for astronomers to study galaxy evolution in the greatest possible detail. Galaxies evolved by two primary methods. The first is dynamical, through the hierarchical acquisition of external systems, mostly dwarf galaxies, into the basic structure of the galaxy. And the second is internal, through the formation, life, and death of stars within that galaxy. The local group's dominant galaxies are M31, which is considered to be the largest. There's some debate on that, the Andromeda galaxy. The Milky Way is second, and each have acquired a system of satellite galaxies. For instance, the Milky Way has accumulated a system of dwarf galaxies such as the Magellanic Clouds, the Sagittarius dwarf elliptical galaxy, to name a few. The Milky Way probably has at least a dozen satellite galaxies in total spread across the sky, including one which is actively being consumed right now by our galaxy, and that's the Sagittarius dwarf elliptical galaxy. Andromeda, M31, the Andromeda galaxy has two well-known bright companions. You saw them on the pin, M110 and M32. In addition to several other lesser known satellites, dwarf galaxies. There are other members, mostly dwarf galaxies, which cannot be assigned to any particular subgroup. They seem to be floating out in the 5 million light year area, and they're all on their own. Although they're gravitationally bound, they're not orbiting one of the big spirals or anything like that. The two giant galaxies of the local group, the Milky Way and the Andromeda galaxy, are in orbit around each other and comprise at least 50% of the total mass of the entire local group. The gravitational center for the local group lies somewhere between those two. They're actually moving towards each other. And it's believed by many astronomers that in 2.5 or so billion years, they're actually going to collide. When galaxies collide, it doesn't mean stars are hitting each other. They'll go through each other. The gravity will pull them back. And it's sort of a dance, and it'll turn into one giant irregular galaxy. Let's go on to neighboring. And this is a list from the manual, some of the neighboring galaxies, and our picture's blocking part of it. But you've got like the Leo group, which I believe they called it. Yeah, M66 group is Leo 1, M51, Whirlpool Galaxy, the M101 group. There's various different groups. Those small groups are just like our local group. They're gravitationally attracted to each other, so they stay in that small group, but they're our neighbors. Some of the distances involved, like the Virgo cluster, 65 million light years, M66 group, 35 million. M81 is pretty close, 11 million, and so on. Okay, this, it looks like our pictures are blocking it. Gives you a little perspective on size. The one local group is the center on the right-hand side behind the pictures. And then next up, excuse me, after our local group and the neighbors is Laniakea. And then it moves into the local superclusters and then the entire observable universe. Okay, log your observations. Within the manual, there are different samples that you can use for logs. You can just photocopy it right from the manual. And a lot of them involve sketching, stuff like that. So you can use those, or you can use just about any way you want to log it. One thing I've learned is if you don't log it, it never happened. You didn't see it. So, and I have a really good friend that, Astro Buddy, that he's my mentor. He's one of my mentors, and he's just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to astronomy. And I can ask him just about anything, but he never logs anything. So I keep telling him, always hounding him, you got to do this so that you can get into the Astronomical League and do some of these observing programs and get some of these pins and that. But he never does. I'm pushing him every day. So this is an example of a log. All of the requirements you saw earlier in the slide. You have to specify what eyepiece you're using, what size telescope. You have to put notes in there, the weather conditions, the scene, the transparency, what the object is. You don't have to put the right ascension declination of the object, but you have to specify which object and everything else. There's a whole slew of things. This is one way of doing it. This is the way that I did it. I have the object in there, and instead of putting the location and all the equipment, I had a ledger at the bottom showing where my locations were with that number, and then same thing with the equipment. It made it pretty easy. Imaging, you can, if you look to the left there, that's one of my imaging sheets I did a couple of weeks ago on M31, M32, and M110. Basically all the information, what camera are you using, how many lights did you use, light frames, how many dark frames, what did you use to process it? Like on this one, you can see at the end of the notes, I put DSS and PS, Deep Sky Stacker and Photoshop. And I'm using that exact same picture, and I'm actually picking out globular clusters around the Andromeda galaxy. I overexposed the core on that on purpose so that I could pick up the globular clusters. So you still have to use a magnifying glass. They're real small. Another one of the imaging ones that I did, this was just last week, is M101. And that group, there's 3 of that group in there. Right next to John there, I can't remember which one that was. It's one of the NGCs that's within that group. And then the far fuzzy one that to the straight left of that, past M101, is another one of the NGCs that's part of that group. They're gravitationally attracted to each other. Submitting for certification, fill this sheet out and send, whether it's via email, you can scan everything, send it to me with this sheet. You can email the whole copies of it. Make sure it's a copy. I don't want the original. You want to keep those originals. and send it directly to me. And I always respond within a day or two. I'll respond by email first, and then I'll let you know if everything's up and going. Also, when you're submitting, let me know if you want it sent to your Alcor so it can be presented by your local society, or if you want it presented sent directly to you. Maybe you're a member at large or something along those lines. Any questions? That was pretty quick.
Galaxies, local group galaxies. Does this program also ask you to observe any very distant globular clusters that are, extra?
The only ones that you can get credit for, I mean, you can observe them anytime, you can add that in, but the only ones that you'll get credit for are the globular clusters around the M31, the Andromeda Galaxy. And there's quite a few of them. That one picture that I had in there, I've picked out already almost 28 from that one picture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I know the League's globular cluster program discusses this as well as how you can handle M31s.
Right.
All its
also, the manual has some fantastic pictures of those globular clusters blown up much larger than what I had there, and it helps you to pinpoint exactly where they're at. Mm-hmm. So
I think a lot of these galaxies are pretty far south. If you want to look at the Magellan Clouds, you're going to have to hop on a plane and head yep. south to see those. But which I have done that, and I found them very rewarding to look at. But so to complete the program, do you have to go that far south, or those?
No, you don't. You have to have 88 objects that are observed, and there are a couple of suggestions in their lists that you can go through and pick from that. One of them is all northern hemisphere. One is southern hemisphere mixed with northern, but closer to the equator. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's very easy. I finished it from Seattle. So that's 48 degrees north.
And you're also talking about the size of telescope. I'll say the minimum size that would probably be needed was something like 8 inch or so. But
visual is
you want something larger.
Yeah, visual 8 inch. Mine, when I did mine visual, I was usually between a 14 and 16 inch dog doing it, and I still had to use averted vision. Imaging. You saw the picture of the telescope I'm using for the imaging there. It's a Skywatcher Esprit 100, which is 100 millimeters. And I'm picking up extremely faint galaxies with that are local and neighbors. However, I'm having to use 45, 50, 40 or 50 2 or 3 minute exposures and then stacking those to make it all come out.
I also want to thank you for bringing up the manual and what is in the manual. There are some very valuable information in there as far as observing, how to be a better observer, how to see more, how to see farther. You just don't talk about the Bortle scales, but you talk about how to make the most of your time in dark.
Exactly.
How to see more, not just averted vision, but everything else that goes with it. Because some of this stuff is pretty dim. And over the past few weeks, this whole series has been talking about galaxies. And galaxies by themselves are, at least from our point of view, are extended objects. And so they're pretty dim. It's hard to see all this stuff. So you need everything that you can on your side to make viewing easier on yourself. And the manual tells you how to do that. So
exactly.
It's a great little manual. I like it a lot.
Like I said, I use it for a whole series of programs. I'm always doing at least 5 or 6 of the programs at any given time. Right now, I'm concentrating on imaging and the radio stuff. Mm-hmm. However, the manual also won't break the bank. It's only $23 in the Astronomical League bookstore. So, and it's well worth it.
Yeah, I agree with that. It is well worth it, even if you're not doing this particular program. You could be doing some other galaxy program, which we have a number of. This will certainly help you
Yep.
in those programs. I think at the beginning you were mentioning that Dareth Murray and Robert McGowan were part of this, and they helped develop the manual and get the program.
Right. With the Rose City astronomers up down in Portland.
Yeah, the RCA was behind them on a lot of this stuff. So a lot of these programs are developed by many different people across the country. It's just not really two people. It takes a team to get this done, especially
Exactly.
Something like this, which you aren't going to go out in one night and knock off all these galaxies. It takes time.
Yeah, there's a whole page in the manual on acknowledging who was all involved in putting that program together. And like I said, it's a whole page. There's a lot of people involved. Those were the two biggest names that really got everything going, but there were a lot of people involved.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I find it interesting that today a lot of these galaxies are in the domain of the amateur. Whereas 20, even 30 years ago, a lot of these galaxies were only seen through professional scopes under circumstances that professionals would use. But today, we can see quite a bit more, and I think that's great. So a program like this is very, very useful for the advanced amateur. As you were saying at the beginning, this is not a beginning program. You got to have experience under your belt to know what you're doing.
You should pick a different program to start out with. Maybe Galileo or one of those, but not this one.
Yeah. You have your Messier galaxies, which are fairly bright, and that's great. These are different, even though some of the galaxies are Messiers. The stuff.
Well, quite a few of them are. I'm in the process. That Astro Buddy that I was talking about, we're trying to photograph all of the Messier objects over this year. Mm-hmm. We're quite a ways into it, but like you said, the technology has changed so much that this is really, an amateur can really observe these in detail, especially if you're an astrophotographer. Some of these they just pop out if you get a little bit of time on them. But I'm in Seattle, 3/4 of the year it's raining here, so I am a very patient person.
And I'm glad you said something about changing technology. It's always changing all the time. So today we have an issue of what constitutes a remote scope. What you can use on your own to call it yours, because a lot of people do have observatories away from their homes, and they operate a lot of these observatories while they're away from the observatory. So the league is addressing this issue, and what's a remote scope and what isn't. What is called your own work as opposed to just some collective nature. And changing technology is all behind this. On the call today, we have Al Lamperti, who's one of our National Observing Program coordinators. And he's here from the Philadelphia area. And I'm pretty sure Al has attempted this program. He's done quite a few of these.
Yeah, I remember meeting Bob McGowan a number of years ago when my wife and I were vacationing in Portland. And we got together with him for dinner. But regardless of what level the viewer is attempting these programs, I think perusing the beginning of this manual will be very helpful for whatever program you're attacking. I like the visuals on transparency and seeing. I think if you're into galaxies, you're a visual person, and to understand all of the sky conditions, I think the visuals that you have are excellent. So I highly recommend it for whatever level one is attempting.
Not just that, learning the local galaxies was just so interesting to me, because I'm getting all the galaxies within about 60 million light years, and they do clump together by gravity. So it's pretty cool to learn them all and where those groups are. I haven't made it to the Southern Hemisphere yet. It is on my bucket list. So maybe after I retire, I will.
What's the name of the galaxy here?
What do you mean? Milky Way? What?
No,
oh, no, that's a bunch of galaxies making a question mark.
Is that an ARP? Or-
It
or
must be an
Photoshop?
ARP. Yeah, it's got to be an ARP.
It
It's
is now.
definitely an irregular.
It is now.
Yeah, if you look at it closely, it's the question mark made up of galaxies.
Uh, I know we're always nicknaming these, so yeah, the question. There we go. Well, Mark, thank you for presenting this to us today and for taking
welcome.
time over the past probably a few days to pull together a lot of these slides and the commentary that you had. That's all very much appreciated because it helps people understand what this particular program is about, as well as the other people who've spoken on this series talking about their own programs. You know, we want people to get out under the stars and enjoy themselves.
Right.
Even when you're an advanced astronomer, sometimes you go out and you think, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? There's so much up there. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to look at. Well, these programs help with that. So it gives you kind of a goal, a quest, if you will.
It gives you structure on your observing and plans. You can pre-plan just about everything. And like I said, I'm working on, at any given time, I'm working on 5 or 6 different programs. So something that I do with one program may work with another program. So I'm getting 2 birds with 1 stone.
Sure, there is some transference between different programs. But anyway, I want to thank you for your time and all your efforts on pulling this together, as well as all the other activities that our coordinators do and volunteers do. Thank you all. Unless there are any more questions, we'll sign off now, and we'll be getting this. Of course, we'll be getting this on YouTube in a few days. So, on that note,
just a comment that at the beginning, that first slide has my email address on there. Like I said, I respond to those emails within a day or two. If I'm over in the mountains in Eastern Washington, I still get service in certain areas, so I'll respond here and there. But yeah, just send me any questions about the manual, about the program, anything to do with astronomy. Send me a question.
and we'll be seeing you in the next program, which hopefully won't be very long. Thank you for watching.